Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our IELTS reading practice series. Today, we're looking at section 1, the history of tea. Tea is one of the most consumed beverages in the world, second only to water. Its history stretches back thousands of years, with origins that are still debated. According to Chinese legend, tea was discovered by Emperor Shen Nong in 2737 BC when tea leaves accidentally blew into a pot of boiling water. Over time, tea became central to Chinese culture, influencing art, philosophy, and social life. Tea later spread to Japan, where it developed into a ritual known as the Japanese tea ceremony. This ceremony emphasizes harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. It transformed tea from a simple drink into a cultural practice deeply tied to Zen Buddhism. In the 16th century, Portuguese traders introduced tea to Europe. At first, it was consumed only by the wealthy because of its high price. By the 17th century, the British East India Company began importing large quantities, making tea more affordable. Tea quickly became part of everyday British life, often accompanied by sugar and milk. The demand for tea in Britain had enormous global consequences. In the 19th century, Britain established tea plantations in India and Sri Lanka to reduce reliance on Chinese imports. These plantations relied heavily on local labor, often under harsh conditions. Despite this, the popularity of Indian and Ceylon teas grew rapidly. Today, tea is enjoyed in countless forms worldwide, from green and black teas to herbal blends. Beyond being a drink, tea continues to symbolize hospitality, culture, and tradition in many societies. I'll read the questions and let's find the answers from the passage. Questions 1 to 4, multiple choice. Q1. Who is believed to have first discovered tea? Here are the options. Let's check the passage. It says, according to Chinese legend, tea was discovered by Emperor Shen Nong in 2737 BC. So the correct answer is a Chinese emperor. Question 2. What is emphasized in the Japanese tea ceremony? Here are the options. Let's see in the passage. The text says, this ceremony emphasizes harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. So the answer is harmony and respect. Question 3. Why was tea initially limited to wealthy Europeans? Here are the options. Let's confirm in the passage. The passage says, at first, it was consumed only by the wealthy because of its high price. So the answer is it was rare and expensive. Q4. What was one major result of Britain's demand for tea? Here are the options. Let's check the passage. It says, in the 19th century, Britain established tea plantations in India and Sri Lanka. So the answer is the rise of tea plantations in India. Questions 5 to 8, table completion, Q5. Ancient China, discovered by. Let's look at the passage. It says, discovered by Emperor Shen Nong. So the answer is a Chinese emperor. Q6. Japan became part of a cultural such. Check the passage. Developed into a ritual known as the Japanese tea ceremony. That means the answer is practice or ritual. Both are correct. Q7. 16th century Europe brought by Sapor Jam. Passage says Portuguese traders introduced tea to Europe. So the answer is Portuguese traders. Q8. 19th century India Sri Lanka. Large. Were established passage. Britain established tea plantations in India and Sri Lanka. So the answer is plantations. Questions 9 to 12, yes, no, not given. Q9. Tea is the most consumed beverage in the world. Passage. Tea is one of the most consumed beverages. Second only to water. So tea is not the first, it's second. Answer, no. Q10. Tea ceremonies in Japan are connected with Zen Buddhism. Passage. Few tea deeply tied to Zen Buddhism. Answer, yes. Q11. The British preferred drinking tea without adding milk. Passage. Creep. Tea quickly became part of everyday British life, often accompanied by sugar and milk. So they did add milk. Answer, no. Q12. Tea plantations in India used only Chinese workers. Passage. These plantations relied heavily on local labor, often under harsh conditions. No mention of Chinese workers. Answer. No. Question 13. Multiple choice. Q 13. Today, tea is mainly viewed as here are the options. Let's check the passage. It says, beyond being a drink, tea continues to symbolize hospitality, culture, and tradition. So the answer is a symbol of culture and tradition. And next section 2, read the passage and we'll find the answers. The rise of electric cars. Paragraph A. The invention of the electric car is not new. In fact, the first electric vehicles appeared in the 19th century. However, they soon lost popularity to petrol powered cars, which were cheaper and had longer driving ranges. For much of the 20th century, electric cars remained a forgotten technology, only occasionally revived during oil crises. Paragraph B. The 21st century has seen a revival of interest in electric cars due to rising concerns about climate change, air pollution, and the depletion of fossil fuels. Governments across the world are now encouraging the development of clean transport, offering subsidies and tax benefits to both manufacturers and buyers of electric vehicles. Paragraph C. Modern electric cars are powered by rechargeable lithium ion batteries. These batteries can be charged at home or at public charging stations, making them increasingly practical for daily use. However, charging infrastructure is still unevenly distributed, with rural areas often lacking facilities. Paragraph D. While the cost of electric cars was initially very high, mass production and technological improvements have made them more affordable. Companies such as Tesla, Nissan, and BYD have played a major role in pushing electric vehicles into the mainstream. At the same time, traditional car makers are rapidly shifting to electric models to remain competitive. Paragraph E. Despite their advantages, electric cars face challenges. Battery disposal and recycling pose environmental issues, and charging times are still longer compared to refueling petrol cars. Nevertheless, electric cars are expected to dominate the automotive industry in the future, as innovations continue to improve their efficiency and sustainability. Questions 14 to 17. Choose the correct heading Q14. Paragraph A equals. Paragraph A talks about the early invention of electric cars in the 19th century and how they lost popularity to petrol cars. The passage just mentions there the historical decline of electric cars. So the answer is the historical decline of electric cars. Q15. Paragraph B equals. Paragraph B focuses on the revival of interest in electric cars due to climate change, air pollution, and fossil fuel concerns, and also talks about government subsidies and tax benefits. The passage just mentions there government support and incentives. So the answer is government support and incentives. Q16. Paragraph C equals. Paragraph C explains modern electric cars, their lithium ion batteries, and the availability of charging stations. The passage just mentions their advances in battery and charging systems. So the answer is advances in battery and charging systems. Q17. Paragraph D equals. Paragraph D describes how the cost of electric cars dropped and how companies like Tesla, Nissan, and BYD helped make them mainstream. The passage just mentions their lowering costs and mainstream adoption. So the answer is lowering costs and mainstream adoption. Questions 18 to 21. Short answer. Q18. In which century did electric vehicles first appear? The passage just mentions there the 19th century. So the answer is 19th century. Question 19. What type of batteries are used in modern electric cars? The passage just mentions their lithium ion batteries. So the answer is lithium ion batteries. Q20. Where is charging infrastructure often lacking? The passage just mentions their rural areas. So the answer is rural areas. Q21. Name one company that has popularized electric cars. The passage just mentions their Tesla, so the answer is Tesla. Questions 22 to 26. Complete the summary. Q22. Electric cars first became popular in the passage just mentions there the 19th century. So the answer is 19th century. Q23. Their comeback in the 21st century is linked to worries about the passage just mentions their climate change. So the answer is climate change. Q24. Governments have introduced to promote their adoption. The passage just mentions their subsidies and tax benefits. So the answer is subsidies and tax benefits. Q25. Efforts by major have made them widely available. The passage just mentions their companies, so the answer is companies. Q26. Problems such as battery disposal and long still remain. The passage just mentions their charging times, so the answer is charging times. Now let's read passage 3 and find out the answers. The psychology of memory paragraph. A human memory is not a perfect recording device. Instead, it is a complex system that reconstructs past experiences, often influenced by emotions, expectations, and later information. Research shows that memory is selective. People tend to remember events that are personally significant, emotionally intense, or repeated over time. Paragraph B. One key distinction in psychology is between short term memory and long term memory. Short term memory temporarily holds information, such as a phone number, for only a few seconds. Long term memory, by contrast, can store information for years. Within long term memory, researchers also identify episodic memory events from personal life and semantic memory, general knowledge and facts. Paragraph C. Memory is not fixed, it is highly malleable. Psychologists have demonstrated how easily false memories can be implanted. In one famous experiment, participants were convinced they had been lost in a shopping mall as children, even though the event never happened. This finding has raised concerns about the reliability of eyewitness testimony in courts of law. Paragraph D. Technological advances are now providing fresh insights into memory. Brain imaging tools allow scientists to observe which areas of the brain are active during the recall process. Such research has revealed that memory involves networks across the brain rather than a single memory center. Some scientists are even exploring ways to enhance or erase memories, raising ethical questions about the manipulation of human cognition. Paragraph E. While memory is often seen as an individual function, it also plays a role in culture and identity. Collective memory, shared by groups or nations, shapes how societies remember wars, revolutions, or significant achievements. These memories influence national identity and can be passed down through generations, even if they are simplified or altered versions of historical events. Questions 27 to 31. Paragraph matching. Q27, an experiment that demonstrated how memories can be artificially created. Paragraph C describes an experiment where participants were convinced they had been lost in a shopping mall as children. The passage just mentions there false memories can be implanted through experiments. So the answer is paragraph C, question 28, a description of memory as a selective process. Paragraph A explains that memory is selective, remembering events that are significant, emotional, or repeated. The passage just mentions their memory is selective. So the answer is paragraph A. Question 29. Different types of long term memory explained. Paragraph B distinguishes short term and long term memory and explains episodic and semantic memory. The passage just mentions their different types of long term memory. So the answer is paragraph B, Q30. The use of technology to study brain activity. Paragraph D talks about brain imaging tools and technological advances in memory research. The passage just mentions their technology is used to study memory. So the answer is paragraph D. Question 31. How memory influences a community or nation. Paragraph E explains collective memory and its role in culture and identity. The passage just mentions their memory influences society and national identity. Right. So the answer is paragraph E. Questions 32 to 36, table completion, Q32, short term memory holds information for only Paragraph B says short term memory temporarily holds information for only a few seconds. The passage just mentions there a few seconds. I'll as So the answer is a few seconds. Q33 long term episodic stores. Paragraph B describes episodic memory as storing events from personal life. The passage just mentions their events from personal life. So the answer is events from personal life. Q34. Long term semantic stores dog bun. Paragraph B says semantic memory stores general knowledge and facts. The passage just mentions their general knowledge and facts. So the answer is general knowledge and facts. Q35. False memory. Example, being lost in IEF. Paragraph C gives the example of participants convinced they had been lost in a shopping mall. The passage just mentions their shopping mall. So the answer is shopping mall. Q36. Collective memory passed down through. Paragraph E explains that collective memory is passed down through generations. The passage just mentions their generations. So the answer is generations. Questions 37 to 40 complete the summary. Q37. Memory is not an exact record of the past, but a process of. Paragraph A states that memory reconstructs past experiences. The passage just mentions there reconstructs past experiences. So the answer is reconstructing past experiences. Q38. Studies have shown that it can be influenced by emotions and later. Paragraph A mentions memory is influenced by emotions, expectations, and later information. The passage just mentions their later information. So the answer is information. Q39. It has also led to debates about the of altering memory. Paragraph D raises ethical questions about enhancing or erasing memories. The passage just mentions their ethics of memory manipulation. So the answer is ethics. Q40. Memory operates at a social level, creating a sense of shared. Paragraph E explains that collective memory creates shared identity and culture. The passage just mentions their shared memory. So the answer is memory. Thanks for watching the video and follow us for more reading modules.